Hey everybody, this is Mr. Mobbin coming at you with another APUSH video, APUS history. Today we're taking a look at topic 1.5, labor, slavery, and caste in the Spanish colonial system. Now, we've already talked previously about the significance of Christopher Columbus coming to the Western Hemisphere and sparking what's going to be known as the Columbian Exchange, which is going to be this, cataclysmic unification, if you will, or bring union of the Eastern and Western Hemispheres. This will bring, tremendous, change to everybody, with benefits in terms of certain crops and certain products that are going to be available now across both hemispheres, but also, most significantly, devastating effects for natives of the Western Hemisphere. Of course, we've already talked about how disease will play a critical role in devastating the Western Hemisphere's natives, but there's going to be more to it than just disease that is going to really devastate native societies in the Western Hemisphere as a result of the Columbian Exchange. And a lot of that is going to be tied to what is going to become the colonial system set up by the Spanish. Now, note, because of the success of Christopher Columbus in the 1490s, that is going to spark a boom in interest by other explorers, once again patronized by the Spanish monarchy, to explore other parts of what is now starting to be figured out, a new land, a new hemisphere. And so you're going to start to see some of these explorers become very famous for their endeavors, but also infamous because of their impact. Let's take a look at some of these in chronological order. If you take a look at this map down here, in 1513, you'll see that Vasco Núñez de Balboa is going to be significant in crossing the isthmus down here in what is eventually going to be known as Panama, connecting the continents of North America and South America. And so basically he's going to be the first Spanish explorer that is going to claim the Pacific Ocean for the Spanish government. But of course it does not stop there. Once there is this belief that the world is round, we've have a Western Hemisphere, and yes, for sure, you can, go west to get to the east, if you will. Somebody has to step up and, want to be able to prove it, not just, mathematically, scientifically, in a classroom or laboratory, if you will, but from actual personal experience. And that is where Magellan is going to be coming in. If you take a look here, the efforts of Magellan are going to be a 3-year-long mission to basically try to circumnavigate the globe. And so you can see here from this map, you're going to see, starting from Spain, that Magellan's voyage is going to go southwest across the Atlantic Ocean down to the southeastern part of South America, which really had not been explored by European jets. You can see here bouncing around the southeastern coast of what's going to become Brazil, Uruguay, Argentina, and then getting down here, getting down here and coming around the southern tip of South America and making his way into the Pacific. And note, this is not going to be an easy voyage for Magellan and his crew. Disease is going to devastate many of those on the voyage, and hostile natives, as well as what we'll see when the crew eventually makes their way into what's going to be eventually the Philippines. Now, the Philippines will eventually become a Spanish colony for centuries, actually, following the work of Magellan. But Magellan will die in the Philippines, but his crew is not going to be stopped in their attempt to try to achieve their goals of circumnavigating the globe. As you can see here, the crew will continue the voyage through what is going to be today modern Indonesia, through the southern parts of the Indian Ocean, around the Cape of Good Hope at the southern tip of Africa, and making their way finally back to Spain. Once again, this is going to be a 3-year-long mission that is going to actually show that humans can circumnavigate the globe. And of course, you can see because of this, this is going to spark Spain being truly a global power. The first, what we would call true global power, will be the Spanish in the 16th, starting in the 16th century. But in North America, after Christopher Columbus, probably the most famous or infamous, of these explorers for the Spanish government is going to be Hernan Cortez. And if you look at the work of Cortez, Cortez is going to be, kind of expanding on Columbus's work here in the Caribbean, bouncing around what's going to be the southern coast of Cuba, but much more importantly, much more infamously, is going to be his endeavors into what is going to be eventually modern-day Mexico. As you can see here on the red dotted line, he will eventually make his way to where we call Tenochtitlan by the native Aztecs, led by Montezuma at the time. Remember, the Aztecs are a very wealthy, very powerful empire at this time. And this was unlike really anything else in North America, and certainly well beyond anything, for example, that Columbus had seen in his voyages in the Caribbean. So this is a very advanced, very developed, very wealthy, once again, powerful civilization. But the Aztecs are not going to be long for this world in terms of maintaining their empire. Shortly after arriving, Cortez and his forces, those conquistadors, will defeat the Aztec Empire, crushing what had been the dominant force there for quite a while, and replacing with now the new overlords of what is going to become, Latin America, the Spanish. Lastly, keep in mind that not only will Spanish power make their way into what is going to be North America, but also into South America. We're going to be seeing the work of Pizarro starting in Panama. This is several years after the work of Balboa, and then crossing into South America, the western coast of South America along the Pacific, into the home of what is going to be the Inca Empire. And this will mark the beginning of the Spanish domination of this part of the hemisphere. The Incas, were basically what the Aztecs were in North America. The Incas will be in South America in terms of power and wealth and being an advanced native civilization. So understand, through these exploratory missions and endeavors, you're going to be seeing that Spanish power is going to spread dramatically across the globe and devastate native powerful civilizations, and will allow Spain the opportunity to reap the benefits of their conquest, being able to exploit, native, products, crops, as we'll talk a little bit later, exploit, the vast resources of a little bit of gold, but a lot of silver, as well. So understand that, kind of what is sparked by Columbus is going to be expanded upon, by several more, explorers. And we're just kind of hitting the highlights. Now note, as we were saying a moment ago, because of the success of the Spanish in conquering the native civilizations in the Western Hemisphere, they're going to try to exploit their new conquest, their new colonies, for every valuable resource that they can get. And, the most valuable, arguably, will be the precious metals that will be found there, particularly gold and silver. And oh boy, are they going to find a lot of wealth as a result of their endeavors. Take a look at this graph right here. And this is basically going to be showing the total volume of gold and silver that are going to be shipped from the Americas to Europe over a 300-year span. Now, note, this is not specific to just the Spanish, but you got to understand, especially if you're looking, from, the 16th century into the 17th century, the lion's share of this is Spanish, way more than anybody else. And you can see here, what will eventually become tens of thousands of metric tons of silver that will be mined and shipped over to Europe. And yes, what will eventually be well over 1,000 metric tons of gold being shipped over to Europe. And once again, especially if you're looking at kind of like the first half of this map here, you got to understand that Spain is far and away reaping the most benefits out of what is this exploration, endeavor. And so this is going to allow Spain, which, hey, early bird gets the worm, so to speak. The Spanish, because of their desire to kind of be one of the first ones out the gate to, conquer the Western Hemisphere, they're going to reap the benefits of all of this wealth. They will easily become the wealthiest country, on earth as a result of these endeavors. The 16th century is really going to be dominated by the Spanish more than anybody else. But note, this is not just a story of how the Spanish became super wealthy, super powerful, but also the story of how this is going to devastate other groups of people. One of those, of course, being Native Americans. Once the Spanish are going to conquer the Western Hemisphere, they will begin to set up communities. They will begin to set up land holdings in the Western Hemisphere that is going to be heavily influenced by what had kind of been the standard for about 1,000 years prior to the age of exploration, and that was feudalism. Now, in the Western Hemisphere, this system is going to be known as the Encomienda system. Now, the Encomienda system, like I said, from the vestiges of feudalism, was based on the idea that there are basically lords and peasants, for lack of a better, set of phrases there. If you are the lord, you own the property. You own the land. You own all the resources. And those that are living and working there, those peasants, have a duty-bound responsibility to provide labor to aid that lord. And that's what you're going to see here in the Western Hemisphere. Native peoples that have not yet died from disease or anything else will be quickly forced into labor rules. This is de facto slavery. The Spanish are basically going to say, you now are our responsibility. You will now provide labor in this new community, this new society. But because the Spanish, believe that this is not straight up slavery, that this is a relationship that has a two-way street and has responsibility, and it's not just the natives providing labor, the Spanish are also going to say that they have a responsibility to the natives, and they'll argue that their responsibility is to look out for their well-being. Just like lords would for peasants in Europe in medieval times. The idea being is that in exchange for that native labor, then the Spanish conquistadors will provide them with protection from other lords or other groups. And of course, the ironic thing is, well, who's going to protect these natives from the lord that is, the conquistador that is, in charge of them? But also the Spanish will say that they have a responsibility to provide natives with the benefit of Christianity, specifically Catholicism. Not that the natives were particularly looking for this, but the Spanish believe that, they are going to bless the natives with, now exposing them, teaching them the ways of Christianity, protecting their safety from the outside in exchange for that labor that is provided for them. Now, of course, the Spanish are going to try to, play this off as them being the good guys. But the reality, though, is that this is going to be devastating. You're going to be seeing, those natives that don't die from disease, which is the vast majority over time. Those that don't die from disease, they're going to die from slave labor conditions. They're going to be worked to death. They're going to get beaten. They're going to be assaulted. They're going to be de facto enslaved. And be forced to submit to the Spanish way of life. So understand that the Spanish Empire, this global empire that is emerging, particularly in the Western Hemisphere, is the result of horrific exploitation of the natives that are going to be living there. Okay? So we'll leave it there for now. We'll continue this in the next video. We'll see you then next time. Bye-bye.